If you're in the market for energy and focus, consider G Fuel, one of the most popular energy supplements on the market today, known for providing fuel for the focus of a new generation of gamers, creators, students, and athletes. Their sugar-free formulas give you the energy, focus, and endurance you need to power through your daily tasks. And if you are interested in getting your hands on some, either to try it out and see if it's right for you, or to resupply your favorite flavor and are looking for a bit of a discount, feel free to use my code TheDsIEGE and get 20% off your next purchase, while at the same time supporting this channel and helping me to continue to create the content you've all come to enjoy. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested, and thank you in advance for any who choose to purchase using my code. I very much appreciate the support, and without further ado, on to the feature presentation.
No, I insist. You first.
If you insist. How kind. How very kind.
Kind? You must be thinking of my sister.
Where is the fair lady then? Should we deal her in?
Well, she sort of lost her head the last we played.
Oh? How scandalous.
Hey all, Siege here, and today we dig into the War Within, another pivotal step in the Tenno's journey that's effects are still being reverberated in the ongoing story, especially with further aspects being introduced in new locations on Lua, having distinct ties to what we see during this quest specifically. And in many ways acts as a bit of an epilogue in the end, giving us valuable information about a few things, most notably the Worm Queen and her intentions moving forward in the Warframe universe, as well as what appears to be the canonical ending of the War Within. Further, this quest introduced what is probably my favorite aspect of the game, the ability to switch between Tenno and Warframe at will, allowing for two different playstyles to be seamlessly blended together, or, in my case, one that supports the other. It just feels more lore accurate, at least to me. The Warframe, the body, and the Tenno, the mind. Although I feel like the battle aspects of the Tenno are getting better and better, so who knows what the future will end up bringing. That being said, it all started here, with subtle shades of what we would become leading up to it. And I have to admit, the first time I saw this, I was like, what the fuck? It was literally one of the coolest things I've ever seen. But it didn't come without cost, as you'll see. Now, our story begins with a disturbance on the recently returned moon, or Lua as it's known in the game, from the world between worlds we know of as the Void, curiously enough placed and presided over by the Tenno's own surrogate mother, the Lotus herself. Now, upon arriving, we are offered important dialogue here regarding how the Orkan first handled the Tenno once retrieved from the Zariman 10-0 from the Lotus. This occurs just before discovering Teshin at our cryopod location, curiously poking around what appears to be our pod specifically.
To me.
What was that?
The Queens.
Queens? The Grineer Queens? Tell me what...
I am warning you. You think you're safe behind this metal, but you're not. Not in the ways that matter here. Behind this, you're still just a child.
Stop saying that.
Follow me again, Tenno, and you will answer to my sword.
The Tenno, still young at heart and wanting to prove themselves, perhaps foolishly decide to look deeper into what he was doing at the reservoir. And after gathering some information from Teshin's specters, we are invariably led to a strange grouping of asteroids with an odd signal deep within.
Are you seeing this?
It must be Queen's Fortress.
Are those Fomorian engines mounted on an asteroid? No wonder we've never been able to find it. It's always moving.
We need to analyze the intel we gathered before our next move.
Negative. I'm heading in for a closer look.
There is a long width story. I recommend listening with the pressure to reach out.
If the base moves again, we'll lose this opportunity. I'm going in.
With that, our character delves deeper into the fortress
We have a gift for you.
until happening upon a familiar room.
I know this place. Teshin?
You shouldn't have come here. You have ruined us both.
Well done, Teshin Dax.
Teshin Dax. You're with them?
I have come as you commanded, my queens.
And this is your offering? My sister needs the orphan child, not its infested puppet.
The child? For what purpose?
To eat it, of course.
Hushworm! Do not question your lords, Teshin Dax. Bring me the orphan. Bring me my Yuvan.
Enough!
How rude!
Oh, it's not their fault, Worm. Mummy and Daddy weren't around long enough to teach them any manners. We will have to.
Ordis? What is this?
Transference surge, operator. You're losing your Warframe connection.
You have some idea that you're invincible, don't you? Nestled away in that mad Cephalon's crib. But you belong to me now. For you see, child, we conceived of these ugly metal cysts.
Operator, cut the link.
I can't.
We gave you your precious gifts. And now, just as easily, we take them all away.
Cut the link. Transference overload in 5, 4, 3.
An interesting detail provided early in the quest might show just how powerful, or if nothing else, how influential these queens are. As the Lotus herself, someone who appears to be one of the most knowledgeable entities in the universe, believed them to be myth, and further, the ability to hide themselves among the asteroids in some ways rivals the Lotus hiding the moon in the void. An interesting characteristic the major queens, if you will, the Lotus, the Great Sentient Queen, and these two have in common. But these queens are actually Orokin, and have a notable history as complex as we come to find the Lotuses to be. In fact, by collecting tiny figurines scattered across the origin system that somewhat resemble the Worm Queen, called Curia, their history is actually offered to us by a man known as Alamedi, who authored this piece in their regard. A story once lost, recovered by fate, the tale of two sisters who bore the same face. Born one quiet morning amidst the great war, all elders were gathered for this life's new dawn. Confused and bewildered, they judged them amiss, for they'd never witnessed two self-same as these. A mirrored reflection had come into life, by will of their father kept safe from the knife. Their sameness was shunned, As slave-like and soiled, they tended their strays, rejected and all. As both girls matured, their bond grew in depth. They had the same poise, same senses, same strength. The uprising came and spread like a weed, an army of copymen, ferocious and free. And much like the sea, they came just like waves. For years they fought on. For years we remained. Like chisel to stone, war molded the twins, who ravaged the hordes, became legend to them. They had a deep strength that came from each other, unlike all these copies, identical, but not brothers. The copies could see it. They yearned for it too. If the twins could do it, perhaps they could too. The twins had attained something more than a whole, a true understanding of each other's soul. The copies became believers. One by one bowed to the twins, and led forth by their new master, they ravaged the colonies. Now a power to follow, not a force to be fought, from the ashes of war, the twin queens were wrought. This poem of sorts explains the rise of the twin queens and further reveals them to be of Orcan nobility, making them of the same ilk as Ballas and the Entrati family. It's interesting that they have decided to utilize these Grineer worm-like bodies, perhaps as a show of solidarity with their newly loyal army of misfits, or maybe to hide from other Orcan who wouldn't be happy with the existence of twins in the system, as this is, strangely enough, abhorred by their society, something I find very interesting and will discuss further later in the video. However, it would seem that the one known as the Elder Queen is ready for a new body, in the form of Arteno, through the practice of continuity, the method of transferring one's consciousness into another body through the use of Kuva, essentially making the Orcan not only immortal, but able to inhabit whatever form of life they choose predicated upon the surrogate they've chosen to overtake. However, traditionally, the process involved the young and beautiful.
A Yuvan theater, long abandoned. In ages past, I would have stood guard as the young and exotic were paraded through the mountain pass and marched by the viewing pain. They'd barter here, the Oregon, withering and coughing as they prepared for their continuity.
She doesn't want me dead.
No, the Queen doesn't want to kill you. She wants to become you.
And once chosen, the Orcan would invade the mind of their Yuvan, just as the Queen is attempting to do to us, utilizing past terrors to slowly crush the will of the host to the point where their consciousness fades out of existence, with only the mind of the Orcan left in control. In our case, in an effort to break Arteno by use of a vision, she attempts to bring up long-repressed memories of what happened aboard the Zeraman 10-0.
I remember.
Mother takes your hand and says there's been an accident. But don't worry, Angel, you're safe with me. Her eyes are distant, unfocused.
She's lying. She's lying. The air was acrid and still.
The biomes had been sabotaged. The food stocks dwindled. Paranoia gripped your father's mind. What was it he said as he stared out into the starless black?
Something's out there, kiddo. Watching us. Something's out there, kiddo. Watching us. I smell smoke.
Fires rage on the lower decks. Blood shimmers in the fitful light. Hunting parties roam the ship. But there is singing and laughter and play, for all the children have come together, their minds somehow unbent. You wipe away your tears, thinking...
This is my family now. My family now. I can hear them.
The grown-ups are howling at the door, drowning mad in the void ocean, but you are at ease, swimming within the depths. You remember then how the howling stopped. They had broken through.
They were nothing but animals by then. So I hunted.
Some of which are visualized during the New War, depicting the sheer terror these children experienced right up until the encounter. And for the particularly astute, we can tell something is off right away due to the falling of snow in the orbiter, a theme utilized frequently during this section, as well as Ortis attempting to kill the operator, but at the same time conveniently enough dropping them off on Earth at what appears to be an abandoned Yuvan temple. At the same time the Queen is attempting to influence us to concede, Teshin is curiously able to invade our mind as well and produce a counter to her words, as well as a method to what he now feels is more integral, the awakening of the Tenno in their true form. In fact, this is something both Margulis and the Lotus seem to be against adamantly, both opting to utilize the dream with transference rather than allow the children to run free. And it makes you wonder if either or both didn't know something more about the situation and why it might not be the best idea. Nonetheless, the guidance of both the Queen and Teshin pushed the Tenno closer to their fate, releasing whatever restraints they were bound by and becoming essentially immortal, as even if they are killed, they enter a kind of void sleep and are immediately returned to life with a cadre of other transcendent abilities. And as Teshin states,
You exist on the fold between two worlds. The world we know, of blood and steel, and the world that watches and dreams, the void.
prepared now for the eventual encounter with the Queen, it goes much like how you'd think. In front of an audience even. Do you see them? Again, something for later in the video, but now that the Tenno have been able to both resist the Queen and reclaim their former abilities.
No crew aboard, only the children. Only the parasital monsters they had become. The endless void, the gazing abyss, the bottomless ocean of horror. It coiled itself around your tender heart.
I hated it.
Cut the link! Cut the link! Transference overload in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Operator, is that you? Your brain activity flatlined for a moment there. Can you speak? By stars, the operator's mind is destroyed.
I'm fine. Just don't play any music. I need to think.
Music? Operator, you are not making sense. The transference surge must have affected you as well. Try to rest while I begin repairs. This is odd. The circuits are dead, but I'm detecting transference energy. Coming from you?
But I've lost my Warframe. And Teshin. What if the Queens know that he helped me escape? I have to go back.
Impossible. Just as you thought, the base has moved again. We don't know where it is. There's no way back.
My Warframe. It's still there.
Haven't you been listening? The transference system is fried.
I don't need it anymore.
Operator, where are you going? Don't leave!
They utilize this ascended form of transcendence to invade the Queen's ship and save Teshin, no longer requiring other devices to seamlessly switch between mind and body.
We hold the scepter. We command you. We are...
Tenno, no. After everything you've endured to escape, why did you come back?
I came back. For you.
Stupid child, you don't give up, do you? But coming here in the flesh? That was a big mistake. Gods, kill this Warframe and bring me my new skin.
And after defeating the Queen's guards, she compels Teshin to kill us.
By my Orokin blood, I command you, TheDsIEGE, to kill this Tenno!
No, I cannot.
You must, by your oath eternal.
With his indentured loyalty to the Kuva scepter forcing his compliance with the request.
That child is gone.
But it's Teshin, so we kicked the crap out of him super fast. Was he throwing here? Tough to say, but without any other guards to command, the Tenno sets their sights on the Queen herself, phasing through her seamlessly and claiming the scepter as our own. This act of passing the staff breaks the control the Queens have on Teshin, allowing him the vengeance he desires. At this point, 3 choices are offered to the player, one of which will allow the Queen to be spared, while the other 2 will take her life. But given what we know of the Worm Queen's activities after this quest, the subtle hint that she offers us...
Kind? You must be thinking of my sister.
Where is the fair lady, then? Should we deal her in?
Well, she sort of lost her head the last we played.
Would suggest at least that the canonical ending of this quest would have Teshin as the one who beheads her, with our Tenno firing a void beam directly through her when they are the one to kill her. Further, the Kuva the Lesser Queen is now gathering, as well as her presence on Lua, is all in preparation for attempting to revive the Elder Queen. So, although I do believe Teshin kills her, it's suggested that in all 3 endings, she did die anyway. Now, in the ensuing chaos leaving the fortress, as well as once we are on board our ship, the Tenno and the Lotus are forced to have a somewhat awkward discussion I would assume many parents are forced to have. Essentially, how much protection is too much?
I'm heading to extraction now.
The Queens, they cut me off. I should have been there for you. I'll signal orders to pick you up right away. A mother wants to shield her child from the evils of the world. Margulis didn't lie to you. She protected you.
But isn't it better I know the truth? Wouldn't you want to know? Teshin said...
Teshin thinks he knows better. Maybe he does. Maybe you needed to know to survive the Queens. But you are changed now.
That's what you have to say? That I'm changed?
What you did, you didn't have a choice. Tenno, you were only just a...
Don't do that. Don't make excuses for me.
The discussion ends with a beacon coming from the actual area on Earth the Tenno were visualizing prior to our undoing of the Queen. After a long and quite scenic walk across the mountains, we meet Teshin, now a truly free soldier for the first time in centuries or more, wanting a word with us regarding what had happened.
You don't know what to do with it.
Tell me.
Some believe the Kuva within is the blood of Orokin ancestors, an elixir of power, of immortality. Others believe it to be a poison, a corrupting oil that brings madness and evil.
What do you believe?
I believe them both. But for you, Tenno, perhaps this Kuva is just a symbol that what you choose to do will define you more than anything.
Now, in what is something that's strongly debated, I will give my take on what happens next, because it's probably the most significant scene in this quest as far as the greater overall narrative of Warframe is concerned. Regardless what you choose, the first true instance of the man on the wall is actually seen in game, although I'll argue later that it might not necessarily be the truth.
Hey, kiddo. What took you so long?
But given the motion Teshin makes toward us immediately after, my interpretation is the Tenno were in fact taken over, and most likely said out loud what we, and I'm guessing Teshin, hear the entity say, prompting him to shake us out of the trance. As if it were just in the Tenno's head, Teshin would have no reason to grab us in the manner he does. And it's even possible this was something he was anticipating, as it's been long documented that the dream was utilized to quiet the voices from the void that were haunting the Tenno, and perhaps this is even something she documented that he would have access to. Margulis and the Lotus continuing to keep the children in their cryopod versus telling them the truth seems fairly odd unless you consider there to be a significant reason for it. And given that the War Within quest ends with our first face-to-face interaction, it's very possible this was just a risk Teshin was willing to take, given the overall state of the origin system. Regardless, this would be the catalyst by which the man on the wall would be awakened after seemingly not being a substantial influence. Well, at least on the surface. Now, there are all kinds of interesting observations made during this quest that could have a lot of significance. According to the Levirian for Varuna,
the last thing many an Orokin lord ever saw, Varuna, she-wolf Incarnadine, the heart of the pack, hunter of godprey. We remember her as a primal horror, the pitiless devourer, stalking burning cities of white and gold, slavering for godflesh. This was not always so. Once, Varuna was the obedient guardian of the Circulus, the holiest of Yuvan temples, upon none other than veiled Lua. Like a loyal beast, Varuna would roam Lua with her 4 steel-maned wolves, the stealthy Dinar, invigorating Raksh, the stalwart Lycath, and the fierce Ulfron. But what they were sworn to guard was perverse, wrong. In a ceremony reeking of Kuva, the Orokin candidate would force their consciousness into the new chosen body, the Yuvan, consigning the mind of the hapless former owner to oblivion. They call this life-extending process continuity. Executor Tuval was one of the ruling 7 and head of the Yuvan clerisy, high-ranking officiators who enacted the hideous ritual, all of whom were now all dead, torn apart, all save for Tuval, now a man pursued.
Meaning that the original ruling cast of the Orokin, according to Drusus of course, were at least all killed in body, except for one, Tuval, who would come to an even worse fate at the end of Varuna's tale. And I wonder if this has anything to do with an earlier observation made during the Yuvan theater aspect of the story. In the original version of this, in fact, 7 of these entities can be seen slightly glowing in blue, much like those appearing in other areas of Lua are prone to, but now they are almost blanked out completely. Almost. Further, this is a vision within the Tenno's head, so it's interesting that these entities would also appear in the Tenno's mind. Well, unless they have some kind of significant relevance, of course. This appears to be another change DE implemented post-quest, not necessarily a bug per se. So it does beg to question why it would be changed in the manner it was, and not just completely removed. Could it be that the number of them falling in line with the Orokin 7, as well as them all wearing headpieces that are most commonly associated with Albrecht Entrati, or his doppelganger, depending on your own perspective, would be too much of a giveaway at this point? Given the development of the story over the years, don't be surprised to see things like this and the change I mentioned in my previous video have sudden relevance in the future, as it does seem like these subtle deviations from the original quests are accumulating a bit of a theme, if you will. At some point, we will learn more about the Tenno Massacre and the Orokin 7, and, given that these executors were given the most access to continuity, Maybe they have been able to achieve a form of omniscience within the void that allows them to live on indefinitely within its presence. Or does this access these spirits seem to have to the Tenno's mind more accurately depict a scene similar to the Man on the Wall wearing the Lotus's helmet during the Chimera prologue? After all, the visions that we see in the theater do resemble what Entrati saw originally. If void entities appearing as doppelgangers were a more common thing than people led on at that time, and rather chose not to talk about it as Entrati did, this would also fall in line with a potential reason for the innate fear the Oricans seem to have regarding twins, especially identical ones, as shown in Alamedi's poem regarding the Twin Queens. It's tough to say, but the fact that they were changed rather than removed does beg to question why. So as I said, don't be surprised if these deviations don't have meaning later. Also, I mentioned that in actuality, the Man on the Wall's first appearance in this quest would be during these scenes where the Tenno were reliving events of the ceremony. His telltale voice repeating certain aspects of our character's dialogue.
Something's out there, kiddo. Watching us.
And if we come to find out these inhabitants of the theater were in fact aspects of the void entity, in hindsight, the War Within will have had much more context for the Man on the Wall than most would have ascertained originally. Additionally, the prevalence of the Worm Queen's forces gathering Kuva, trying to secure the older Yuvan temples on Lua, considered the most efficient for continuity due to their odd connection to the Void, as well as the recently exposed Zariman 10-0, seems to imply that we will see the Grineer Queens again at some point. And it makes me wonder if it won't be in the form of something stronger next time. After all, her original intentions were to take over a Tenno child, and given her heritage, it's almost certain she knew just how powerful she would be by becoming one herself. So is it that much of a stretch to think she won't try again? Maybe this time within the heart of the Void conjunctions, where the Void is said to be stronger? What are the implications of Orkin or others actually succeeding in subverting the will of a Tenno and taking over? And finally, what's going on with Teshin? Tal Regor calls him a pseudo-Tenno. He clearly has an interest in us, and given how he just conveniently pops up once the Lotus vanishes during the Nota quest, his presence in Duviri, and finally his ability to invade the mind of the Tenno during this quest, apparently without the Elder Queen knowing while she's in control of the vision, well, to me this is all too convenient for a single Dax soldier who by all rights should hate the Tenno, given their assault and eventual destruction of the Orcan elite. So what gives here? It's tough to say, but his continuing involvement in the story, even after his supposed death, will almost assuredly have significant meaning down the line. What that meaning will be is tough to say, but I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this deeper look into the War Within, and it got you thinking about where all this is headed, potentially in the very near future. The actual War Within may have only just begun. At any rate, I hope you all have a wonderful day today, a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk at you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.